Hi, welcome to another episode of Camposol Through Time. This week, we're looking at a massive project in the area that was years in the planning but never took off. That's Polaris World. To find out more about what happened, in the studio with me today is our very own historian and time traveller, Antonio Hernandez Benitez. Antonio, nice to see you again. Hello. So Polaris World, a lot of people have heard rumours about what it was going to be, what it was, what it is now. Tell us the story. What was Polaris World?
Well, Polaris World was, at the beginning of this century, of the 21st century, was one of the biggest building companies here in Murcia region. And they already create like 2-3 different resorts in Torre Pacheco and Balsicas. And then once those resorts they were working and operating, they decided to create something even bigger project, which is nowadays Condado Alhama.
And how big were their dreams?
Well, initially they wanted to create the first private city in Europe with over 100,000 people living permanently.
A private city? I mean, Condado's big. Condado's a very big area with the golf course in the middle, and it takes ages to get around to the gate from the motorway. But when you say a private city, 100,000 people, how would that have been around this area?
Well, they were planning to, actually they bought a huge extension of fields with the local farmers and big agriculture corporations. They used to grow different crops. And even they bought a small urbanization with a small airport. Actually, it's near Los Cánovas. And the idea was actually to create a city with all the services running by Polaris World, with a hospital, with schools, with even a bodega, creating their own wines. You know, they wanted to create their own vineyards. They actually started to grow oranges as well, which already they are actually near Condado. They're still operating.
If you go from the back road, you go through Canales, and you take the little lane, which recently, last couple of years, has been relayed. You can go up the back there, and there's a lot of orange plantations just behind the back entrance to Condado.
Exactly.
Is that where that is?
Exactly.
So it's quite a big area then. I mean, how big was the area that they bought?
Huge. I mean, we are talking about millions of square meters that they actually bought. Before Condado, for instance, they used to grow where Condado is now. In the situation of Condado, they used to grow pomegranates.
Right.
It was a big farm, actually, pomegranates. And they as well, they bought different companies like Coquela, which they used to grow as well, different things like grapes and different stuff. And the idea was not only to build houses, actually to create as well like luxury houses with people they can fly all the way from United States with their own planes and landing in Condado and go home with the plane. And different ideas, actually. It was incredible to see the project. And Condado, the Condado that we have now, it was actually the first step, actually, of all this plan.
That was the first step of the major design.
Exactly.
But also the motorway, I believe, that goes past Condado, that wasn't there before either, was it?
No. It was just what we used to call it national road. It was a single road. And actually, Condado, they have the agreement, Polaris World, they had the agreement with the town hall in Alhama de Murcia to pay for the construction of this motorway in order to give facilities for the residents, because they were expecting to have, as I say, not only Condado, they were expecting to have like 10 times bigger than Condado.
Because on the opposite side of the motorway to Condado, you've got I think it's a nature reserve, it's scientific interest, the flats, the salt flats.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, were the plans to go into that, or was it always on one side of the motorway?
On the way from Condado to, for instance, to Los Cánovas, I mean, all the way in the back, actually they bought majority of the fields between roads, actually from the motorway that the Condado is sitting now or placed now, to the road which goes to Los Cánovas, which actually have a small farm over there, which actually they were my neighbors actually.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And actually they bought from nearly Los Cánovas village, which is like 15 kilometers away from Condado.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are talking about
to the airport on the airfield that's still there now.
It's still operating over there. Actually, the different companies are running down.
They're doing training flights as well for future airline pilots.
Yeah.
And a big shout out to you guys if you're watching this. See you Monday nights. That's aside, but I know they do training there. They've got the actual airfield's still there.
Yes.
And there seems to be lots of houses, but nobody seems to live there anymore.
No, because this was a failed project. That actually it was before even Condado Lama or before even Polaris Wall was created.
So they built the airport first?
Exactly.
Okay.
And actually the man who was running this project died in an airplane accident. Okay. And then, well, Polaris Wall came and actually they bought majority of those fields and so on with the idea of actually to continue building
And
houses
just
over
expanding,
Exactly.
expanding, and making, like you say,
Bigger, a lot bigger, and they wanted to create something. They think about when we are talking about 100,000 people is the size of Lorca City.
that's a big private project.
Oh yeah, yes, it was huge. It was a huge project.
Okay. So it's a big step up from the other urbanizations they had over at, is it Torre Pacheco, you say, and Balsicas? Yeah,
Yes.
so it's a huge step up. So they would have had funding for this, they would have had the money to pay for all this, or?
Well, initially they used to. Okay, I mean, we have to think about, for instance, where is it coming from, this idea of Condado Alam? Why is it called Condado? No, why the symbol of Condado and this logo that they have, or they used to have mainly. And this logo is actually a Mexican cactus. Okay, and this idea of the name of Condado is coming from United States. The person who created Polaris Wall, it was a man it was called Pedro Garcia Meroño. He was from Torre Pacheco and Balsicas, but he was living in Miami.
Right.
Okay, and in Miami, he at the end of the 20th century, he got the idea of why not to make urbanizations like in United States, like they are in the United States, building in Murcia. He thought we have a wonderful weather. For instance, Condado Alama or Polaris Wall is not far from the beach, really, and actually you can create plenty of facilities in a short time, no? And actually that's why they imported this idea, okay? And this man actually, he got all the funding from the United States. Originally, all the money was coming from the United States.
And that was his dream.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Well, what happened in 2007, there was economic recession and actually started in the United States.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually Polaris Wall were the first ones to suffer. Even if in 2007, 2008, Spain, the economy was still growing, comparing with different countries in Europe.
But the crash happened in 2008 over here, towards the end of 2008, whereas in the States it was a year earlier.
Already Polaris Wall, they were suffering 1 year in advance. Okay, so they couldn't finish really the project because of this lack of financial.
Couldn't raise the money anymore.
Exactly.
And then what happened to the land? Was it owned by them at any stage? Has it been sold on, or the actual land itself around, or was it just subject to be purchased?
Well, it was all controlled and owned by Polaris Wall. They were always honest.
So they actually bought the land?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And majority of the times they used to, even to local farmers, they used to swap. They used to say, well, you have a field of, for instance, I don't know, like 20,000 square meters. I swap your fields for 1 or 2 apartments in Condado. Okay, or 1 apartment in Torre Pacheco, for instance. Okay, and many people, they agree with that. Okay, they thought, why not? I mean, I have a free house. Okay. And actually, they were the owners of everything, and they were honest. I mean, when they approached the farmers and so on, they say like, look, we are Polaris Wall. We are placed it in Torre Pacheco. They invited us several times to go and see the project, to visit the different offices, different rooms, and you were very welcome over there, and they were honest, telling like, look, this is what we are going to do. We wanted to do this, and we wanted to buy your fields or swap your fields or something else. Then when Polaris disappears, it was sold. Actually, all the fields, they were sold again, the same as the apartments. The banks actually they reprocessed majority of the fields, or probably all, and they sold it. So plenty of farmers and different other companies, especially agriculture corporations. I mean, they corporations that they grow different fruits and vegetables. They bought majority of the fields, that's why it's still, for instance, working about the oranges.
Yeah, it seems quite intensive to farm.
Exactly.
Yeah, there are still some areas around the road which have clearly been left for a long time, and nothing's in the fields. The road goes through quite a lot of wild area. Still flat, still possible farmland, but it hasn't been agriculturalized. I've just made that word up. But it hasn't been made into active farmland anymore. So do you think that will change, and people buying parcels, or are they just still owned by the bank?
No, majority nowadays is owned by local farmers. They actually bought again. Many farmers, they sold or they swapped for an apartment, and now they bought again the fields that they used to own. Okay?
So quite a lot of people have done quite well out of the whole project.
Yes.
There's winners and losers.
Oh yes, obviously.
It sounds like a fascinating way to actually think of the area, because if you've got that many people, and we're in Camposol, but when you think from our junction, you can almost see the edge of Condado with
For sure.
with the palm trees. So it's very, very close, and they would be our neighbours here on Camposol.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Almost like sort of the big neighbour that way, and
Oh yeah.
Camposol all of a sudden wouldn't be one of the biggest urbanisations in the country anymore.
Well, Camposol is not the biggest organization in the country, or it's not even one of the biggest.
Camposol it's the biggest in Murcia, one of the biggest in Murcia, I believe.
Well, probably Murcia region, one of the biggest.
Yeah.
Okay, but even in, for instance, Alto Real area in Molina, is like 4 times bigger than Camposol, So it's big,
Yeah.
but it's not one of the biggest.
Yeah, yeah. It's a nice area to live here. I do like it because there's so many things going on, and the history. Whether it's the old history we've spoken about before, whether it's just that local history. It's only 20 years ago. This area could be so different if that crash hadn't happened by that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
One thing in America that happened. What's this now? 18 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
It would have changed the whole look of the whole place.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Thank you very much for coming and explaining
You're
it to
welcome.
us, because I've always had this sort of thought about, I'd heard about Polaris World, and I was thinking like Disneyland or something like that, but it's actually nice to shed some light on what it actually would have been. So thanks, Antonio. Brilliant.
You're welcome.
Nice to see you again. And that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching us on Camposol TV. We'll be here the same time next week for another episode of Camposol Through Time. Bye-bye for now.